Welcome back to Boy Party's 25 for 25, where I count down the 25 best films of the century so far. We're into single digits, folks. This week, I'm discussing number 9 on the list, Christopher Nolan's Inception. It's kind of hard to overstate how important this film was to my adolescence, to my sudden pivot to becoming a big movie teenager. I was a music guy for a couple of years. I was 11, 12 years old, and I was reading music magazines. I was buying CDs. Wasn't really into cinema. I was into Harry Potter. I was into Twilight. I was getting a little bit into superhero movies, but I wasn't excited about directors. I wasn't excited about the concept of a summer blockbuster inherently, unless it was Harry Potter or Twilight related. I really didn't pay attention to what was coming out unless it was associated with the book I'd read or whatnot. And then Inception came along, completely changed my perspective, turned me into a massive Christopher Nolan fan, turned me into a fan of big original science fiction movies, of summer spectacle, of whatever Warner Brothers were going to put out in the middle of July, regardless of what it was. Something that has kind of waned over the years, but was a big thing for me in the mid-2010s. And really just a film that like I can directly associate with a feeling of incredible inspiration. I mean, I felt like entire new realms of possibility in terms of what movies could be and what visual creativity could be were opening up to me, which might sound insane because I'm talking about Inception. It's a film that everyone has seen. It's on TV a lot now. It kind of has probably become something of a cable classic, and it's probably a film that people now sort of look back on and go, oh, was that overrated? Do we overrate Inception? And to me, Inception has become underrated. It is very rarely mentioned as Christopher Nolan's best film, although it, to me, clearly is. That conversation seems to generally focus on either The Dark Knight or, I suppose, Oppenheimer at this point, and maybe Memento in some people's cases. But for me, Inception is kind of like miles ahead. Like it's probably the best film Christopher Nolan will ever make, to me, because it's got this kind of perfect combination of everything that he's good at in one place, and the perfect cast, the perfect score. I don't know how he will ever better it. I'm going to read you something I wrote in 2020 on the 10-year anniversary of Inception. I wrote a blog post called July Dreamin' about how this movie had changed my relationship with summers. It started off like this. On July 16th, 2010, I purchased the album Planet Jedward on CD, my final pure, culturally naive act of childhood, and the day ended with my belief in the possibilities of cinema, enriched by one hyper-ambitious blockbuster by a twee Englishman called Christopher. Inception jump-started my youth, my individuality of taste, and my investment in a notion of cultural passion that extended beyond the infantilism of Harry Potter. Now, Inception is a big, multi-$100 million Warner Brothers movie. It is not some sort of experimental, avant-garde, interesting fare. However, it may as well have been the way I approached it in 2010. You know, as the child of film people that my parents are, I really should have had a more open mind at this point. But I just finished primary school that summer, and I needed something, I think, to kickstart an interest in film beyond what I was familiar with. And Inception represented that for me. This is the first Christopher Nolan film I saw, I guess, because I think I would have watched Batman Begins and The Dark Knight probably later that same year. I definitely didn't see The Dark Knight when it was released in 2008. I remember my parents went to see it without me because it was rated 15 in Ireland, and also the Joker seemed really scary from the marketing. I didn't want anything to do with that guy. But then I watched it, I think, on TV later in 2010, and Batman Begins, and then by the time The Dark Knight Rises came out in 2012, I was extremely excited for it, and then have been a Christopher Nolan head ever since. I'm afraid to admit it's not a cool position to be in, to be a big Christopher Nolan fan, but it's an easy one to be in. He makes it so easy. His films are good. They come out every 2 years or 3 years. Most of them are great movies. And he's always got something new up his sleeve. I think crazily all of his films are really good, with the exception of Tenet, which I think is pretty terrible. In terms of choosing what was going to be on the 25 for 25 list for Christopher Nolan, I mean, Inception was a no-brainer for me. It's always been near the top of my favorite films of all time list and my favorite films of the century list. If I had to go with a second choice, other than this, what would it be? Would it be Dunkirk? Would it be Oppenheimer? Or perhaps a little facetiously, would it be The Dark Knight Rises, the film that I have for years now preached is a 5-star film. I love it dearly. It is far better than the first 2 Batman movies. I love everything about it. Realistically, though, no. It would be between this and Oppenheimer. I think Oppenheimer is fantastic. I think it's a worthy film to put on a list like this. But for me, Inception is the shit. I wrote in that piece in 2020 about how sort of my parents thought Inception looked like something I would enjoy. And that was an interesting moment where they were like, okay, maybe we should let our teenage boy be into some teenage boy bullshit of a sort of a tolerable nature. Not Transformers, mind you, not wrestling, not the music of some annoying band that teenage boys were getting into at the time. No. Inception, Christopher Nolan, this was what they were like identified as a tolerable teenage boy interest that they would allow me to engage with. So we went to see Inception, and it blew my mind. I had a fantastic day. It was a Friday in July. It was the day the movie came out. We went to see it like lunchtime, and my head was spinning the rest of the day and the rest of the summer, honestly. And I didn't get to see it again until Christmas when I got the Blu-ray as a Christmas present, which my parents bought me, the like deluxe Blu-ray that comes in like the silver case from the movie, and it has like the spinning top inside. It's really cool. I still have it. It was a great gift. But yeah, I fucking watch Inception all the time now. It's like the best movie ever. I mean, what can I say? I'm gonna use a lot of silly OTT language to talk about this film. It just rules. I feel like men 10 or 20 years older than me have this relationship with a lot of movies, and everybody accepts that as normal. And then me, who was 13 in 2010, I say Inception is the movie that changed my life. And people a bit older than me probably roll their eyes. Oh, Inception. Yeah, we all like Inception. But no, Inception, when you're 13, is insane. It's so cool. It's a movie about dream thieves, hacking into dreams, planting ideas, building dreams within dreams. I mean, I feel like the cultural perception of this movie is weirdly confused, where Inception, or, sticking something with Ception at the end, has become shorthand for like a thing within a thing, right? Which is fine, but like the idea of like a thing within a thing was defined years ago by Russian dolls. I don't think Inception is inherently about things being within things. It's about hacking into dreams and stealing stuff from them. I mean, it's a much cooler and more specific concept than just a thing within a thing. You go, I don't know. The little thing popped up on my phone in the middle of the app. It was like Instagramception or something. It's like, well, yeah. I think Inception, which is a great title for a great movie, deserves a lot more in the cultural consciousness than being associated with Russian doll theory. Anyway, it's a movie where Leonardo DiCaprio looks sick as hell. He's styled to look like Christopher Nolan. He plays Dom Cobb, which is a cool name for a cool guy. And he steals things from dreams, and he plants things in dreams. And at the start of the movie Inception, which was released in July 2010 by Warner Brothers, written and directed by Christopher Nolan, Dom Cobb is hired by a man called Saito, played by Ken Watanabe, to do some corporate espionage, to basically hack into the dreams of a man played by Cillian Murphy, Fisher, and convince him to sell off his father's company, do some business that's going to make Ken Watanabe very rich and make the world a better place. Dom Cobb's motivation for taking on this job is that he is a fugitive. He has been framed by his dead wife for her murder. We find out later in the movie his dead wife committed suicide, framed him for it based on a delusion she was living in that the real world was a dream and the dream was the real world. Dom Cobb can't see his children. They're back in America. He has to live overseas. And what Saito can offer Dom Cobb is a route back to the United States and to see his children. This is the stakes of the movie. This movie largely takes place within people's dreams, and yet it manages to feel so high stakes because of the family and emotional motivation that Dom has, but also because of just the constant location hopping. This movie is shot in so many different countries and so many different environments, and even in the real world stuff, which takes up pretty much the first half of the movie, is mostly set in the real world. You get the Mombasa sequence, which is incredible. And you have just a lot of cool locations that exist outside the dreams, as well as more fantastical locations in the dreams. For example, we have a recruitment of Elliot Page's character. This is obviously before Elliot Page transitioned, but Elliot Page plays a young architecture student that Dom recruits in Paris, called Ariadne. And Dom takes Ariadne on a little tour of Dream Paris, where Ariadne is able to construct architectural phenomena out of thin air as part of the dream. And this is one of the most iconic scenes in the film. It involves the folding street, which I love, which is on the poster, as well as the crazy giant mirrors and all this stuff. And it's really, really fantastic.
Something, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And Elliot Page is great in this movie. Really well cast. It's really funny that like the main female role in this film was played by this actor from Juno. It's kind of the only point in movie history where this person was getting put in this role, and it's a really interesting combo. And it's really nice that Christopher Nolan has now cast a post-transition Elliot Page to star in The Odyssey in a role coming out next summer, which is really exciting. I can't wait to see him work with Christopher Nolan again. But they're basically training this team, which includes Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Tom Hardy, and a number of others in order to hack into Cillian Murphy's dreams. And then the second half of the movie is the heist on Cillian Murphy's dreams. They lure him onto a plane, and Dom basically references the fact that his father has just died, played by the great Pete Postlethwaite.
You know, I couldn't help but notice, but you wouldn't happen to be related to the Maurice Fisher, would you?
Yes, he was my father.
Well, he was a very inspiring...
And then they knock him out and they hack his dreams. And when they get into his dream, they put him asleep and they create another dream. And then they put him asleep and they create another dream. And there's multiple layers of dreams going on. And then Christopher Nolan does the thing that he is best at in the whole world, which is he has multiple action scenes running concurrently, cutting back and forth. And he has found numerous ways in his films to do this in exciting and interesting ways. In this movie, you've got multiple layers of dreams happening concurrently with the same characters, but you can cut back and forth between them because you've got the dream within the dream, and you got the dream within the dream within the dream, and then you got the real world. In Dunkirk, he's got these three different like temporalities of time where one timeline's happening over an hour, one is happening over a day, one's happening over a week, and they're all intercut as if they're happening at the same time, and it works. And then in Interstellar, you have obviously different wormhole. One side is moving very quickly, one side is moving very slowly, and he does some stuff like this in Oppenheimer as well. I think it's the thing that he's best at. I think he's a very clever filmmaker when it comes to time, and he's a fantastic filmmaker at cutting action to keep things moving, but also to go back and forth in a way that is fluid and doesn't get confusing. And obviously a huge part of that in this movie and in his other films is the music. And Inception has just one of the great film scores. It's Hans Zimmer at his best. I don't think he's ever topped this. It's a fucking fantastic score. And there's a reason why it's become, in many ways, his trademark, and obviously something that is kind of ripped off and has been plagiarized many times. I think this is one of the most influential film scores of the last 15, 20 years. Maybe that's a bad thing. You now have to listen to these goddamn Brahms in every film trailer, in every film score, but in the context of Inception, I think it works extremely well. At a certain point during the dream heist, Dom is forced to explain to Ariadne what's going on with his dead wife, which is basically this whole backstory that they built a dream world together. They lived there for what felt like 50 years. They went back to the real world eventually, but then his wife Mal, played by the great Marion Cotillard, became convinced that the real world was the dream and that their real children were back in the dream. And she kills herself. She tries to get him to join her. It's really dark backstory for the lead of a big summer blockbuster. I don't think I clicked until very recently just how kind of grim the backstory is here. I mean, this movie is basically about a guy whose wife has killed herself, who can't see his children. I mean, that's really sad. Some people have speculated that the Dom not being able to see his kids' stuff is loosely inspired by Christopher Nolan's brother, not the filmmaker, his other brother. Google him. He's an interesting character. But it's really sad, really dark, but we get a great little montage eventually with the "We Built Our Own World" theme showing us what happened with Dom and Mal.
But for her.
She had locked something away, something deep inside her. Truth that she had once known.
And basically we get our really cool dream heist with all these iconic action moments like the spinning hallway in the hotel and all the ski slope stuff. I think there are people who kind of check out at this point in the movie. They don't think the ski stuff really works. They think it's kind of random action thrown in there. I mean, it's obviously Nolan trying to do his Bond movie and doing his On Her Majesty's Secret Service homage, but I think it's great. I think it works really, really well. I think the action in this movie is absolutely riveting. And it doesn't feel low stakes, even though it's happening inside dreams, because I think the risk of dropping into limbo, as silly as it might sound, is presented in a very realistic way. And you think, oh God, these people might be fucked if this goes wrong. A couple other actors in this movie I want to shout out. You've got Tom Berenger in here, Michael Caine, Dileep Rao, who appears in this and Avatar within 6 months of each other and then basically disappears. I mean, fair play to him. He's in these two great roles and then he just vanishes. I hope he made good money. Lucas Haas, Leo's old childhood friend. He gets killed off in the first 20 minutes of the movie, but he's very good. And then Pete Postlethwaite, as I mentioned, who died very shortly after this came out. He died January 2011, only at the age of 64. It's awfully sad. He's a wonderful actor. Yeah, this movie came out in summer, in July, sort of in the exact release date. The Dark Knight had come out 2 years previously, and exactly 2 years later, The Dark Knight Rises came out. I mean, what a 6-year run to be a teenage boy, to have two Batmans and Inception lodged in between, all directed by Christopher Nolan. It was wonderful. It made almost $1 billion. I mean, $840 million. It got a Best Picture nomination. I mean, it really did just, I think, take over the public consciousness there for a year, where I think you would rarely find someone who hadn't seen and loved Inception. It was pretty much agreed to be a great movie by all. And I don't think that's really happened with any of Nolan's other movies, bar since, I mean, it happened with The Dark Knight, bar maybe Oppenheimer, which of course won Best Picture. And I will forever think that Inception was the movie for which he was robbed. It's the year that the King's Speech wins. Now, we all know The Social Network was probably a rightful winner as well, but for me, it would have been Inception, I think, with The Social Network a close second. A film that was also on this list, of course. And that's it for me on the 25 for 25 for Inception, which is a great movie that you've probably seen, and if you haven't, you should check it out. I'll be back very soon with the number 8 movie on this list. There's new episodes of Boy Party dropping every Tuesday at boypartypod.com. Thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye.
Welcome home, Mr. Cobb.
Thank you, sir.